Imagine a planet of little TJ lasers, all highly skilled in weapons and biotic tactics, with me as absolute ruler. If you don't want to be a part of this incredible vision, then you can get a space taxi back to planet Idiot.
I'm TJ Laser, expert with lasers and phasers. That's the Alien Scourge.
Where are we?
Lasers and phasers. Lasers and phasers.
What is up, everybody? Welcome once again to another round of the Wheel2Wheel Tier 2 Championship. This is Ruben Racebug Mania commentating with you guys today, and today we are going to the Circuit de Barcelona Catalunya for round number 5 of the championship. 16 corners, 4.5 kilometers of distance throughout the lap, give or take, is going to be replicated 33 times this afternoon. And we have as the tires the softs as the C3, the C2 are for the mediums, and the C1s are going to be the white marks softs. The qualifying is going to be very important, one of the most important qualifying sessions of the season, I would say, because statistically in the last few years the front row has won the race 80% of the time. Moving to our standings. We have Lira, who unfortunately has left the league. He has gotten promoted to Tier 1. He's still leading the championship. We have Colored Lonely in P2, Lasher in P3, Praise in P4, Cuba P5, 5 points behind. Then you have Black Widow and Georgia in 6th and 7th, Sproxa in 7 with 17 points in 8th, Crime not too far behind in 9th, and Wizok 4 points behind his fellow Brit is closing the top 10. In terms of our Constructors Championship, we have Haas leading the championship with 117 points, as we have Racing Point in P2, 29 points behind. Then we have Red Bull, 26 points behind the second place car, and then we have Alfa Romeo with 48 points, 14 points ahead of Mercedes, as Ferrari occupies 6th place with 25 points, McLaren in 7th with 12, Renault in 8th with 6, Williams in 9th 2 points behind, and in last place we have Toro Rosso with only 3 points scored in this season. So with that, let's see how will our drivers perform today in our qualifying session for our Spanish Grand Prix. Okay, just setting everything out on my second monitor real quick. Make sure everything is alright, and okay, we are back. So, apparently we only have 14 drivers. One driver must have dropped out of the session during the loading. Someone probably crashed, which is unfortunate. But just getting ourselves all the details for all of you guys who like to watch them. And we have a few guys already on a flying lap. We have Lasher already giving it pins. Gets now to turn 2, up through the gears to turn number 3. Full throttle as he gets up to the gears now, spotting that big Pirelli sign as his braking zone for turn number 4. Getting an early apex, it's going to understeer him a little bit at the exit, but he manages to keep the car under control. Hard on the brakes once again for this quite slow turn 5. You need to be smooth on the throttle coming out. He does get it smoothly up through the gears now to the chicane of 7 and 8. It starts now going uphill before throwing your car through Campsa. Corner number 9 is lagging quite a bit as it opens DRS in the second DRS zone, now 100 meters away from the hairpin of turn 10. You go hard on the brakes as you start going uphill through turns 11 and 12. Very easy to lose your balance through there and spin, especially on the harder compounds. Now we start going downhill, starting with the right-hander of turn 13 before going through the left-right combination of turns 14 and 15, and then under acceleration for the last corner. Also a very important place of the circuit, especially in the race, as it's going to cross over the line, and it is a 121.1 as it takes the top step of the table at the moment. Now jumping to Radek as he's completing his lap. Let's see how he goes. He's about to complete that one, getting himself now through the chicane. We do have one of the Williams. It is Han Solo about to start his lap. So let's see what the Mercedes does. And he's going to get himself on the softs. New pole position time with a 120.5. Let's see what Han Solo does. He was telling me before the race that he didn't feel like he had much practice. So he's starting on the hards. Of course, he's going to try to pull off the one-stop strategy, or perhaps he's just having practice laps to then start the race on the mediums, or maybe even on the softs. Let's see how he gets now to turn number 5. He gets through 7 and 8 very nicely. Ooh, the rear complaining a little bit there on the weight transfer, a bit too aggressive there from the Williams driver. He's getting himself now through the second DRS zone. He who has only scored points so far at Azerbaijan, he got a 9th place at Azerbaijan, did not appear for the Australian Grand Prix and finished 13th place at both Bahrain and China. So let's see if he improves on his best finishing position of course 9th place here today. He's getting now within the 3rd sector. I don't think he has nullified his lap. Looked a bit slow at the exit of that last right-hander. Let's see how it goes for him. And it's going to be a lap of 123.7. Slowest so far out of everyone. Overseer is already out of the session. Tanaku is already out of the session as well. So maybe problems for those guys. Maybe they went into the wall somewhere along the way. In the meantime, we have Wizok in the second sector. Let me try to find out where George is also in the second sector, but Wizok is closer to the end of it. Delta has joined, so Delta was the driver that wasn't racing, and George, some problems there with him, is completely missing his front wing. Not sure what happened to him, but he's going to have to go into the pits for a replacement of that one. He's not going to be posting any competitive times with that lack of front wing. So let's follow Wizok as the British driver of the Toro Rosso is going to get himself completed a lap. He also achieved the best finishing result of the season for him. His previous points performance were only a 10th place at Australia, but he finally got P5 at Azerbaijan. Let's see how he does now, completing on pole, at least provisory pole, very close there, about 400ths of a second separating him and Radek as he moves to the top place of the table. So very nice to see, great performance there, good start for the race weekend for the Toro Rosso driver. It looks like if he's on the softs, looks like he's going to opt for a two-stop strategy. Of course, you can try to go from soft to 2 sets of mediums, or you can go soft, hard, soft, trying to take them to the end. So yeah, let's see how it goes for them, as we have Proxa on his outlap. Crime has left the session, so maybe he's satisfied with his 121.8 that grants him P5 at the moment. In the meantime, Gary Gunn is in fourth with a 128.8 as well. Very close there, his lap time to Crimes. So yeah, that very good lap time from Crime for him to be on the hards almost as quick as Gary Gunn on the softs. Unless Gary Gunn had some sort of issue, Proxa is going to start his flying lap. Let's go on board with the Austrian driver. He only got 7th place in Austria, then 10th at Bahrain, 5th at China, and wasn't able to show up for Azerbaijan, so he broke his streak of points finishes. Let's see if he can improve on that 5th place finish he got at China, which is his current best. Let's see how it goes for him. Up third gears now to turn number 4 before spotting his braking zone. It is a quite tricky braking zone. I don't think there is a proper brake reference there, or a proper reference that tells you exactly where to brake. So at least for me, it is quite tricky spots to get your braking correctly done, as he gets a little bit wide there to turn 9, not enough to give him on the gravel, so not too much time lost, I would say. Taraku has rejoined the lobby, so Taraku maybe just disconnected. Crime has left the session altogether, so maybe just disconnected. He was having issues connecting to the lobby. That's why we got a delay on the start of the lobby itself. But looks like Crime just rejoined. So yeah, let's see. It looks like we have some instability with some of the drivers' connections today. Let's see what the Ferrari driver does. He's going for pole, 129.4. First driver to get himself below the 119s, or sorry, the 120s. Very good lap there, more than a second quicker than Wizok, so very well done from him. In the meantime, we have Radek in the second sector in the outlap. Gary Gunn is also in the outlap, about to start his flying lap. Then we have both racing points also about to start laps. We have Delta as well and Goziag. So yeah, I believe it is Colored Lonely, the first one to start is a lap. You had a good opportunity to claim P2 at Azerbaijan, but he went into the wall at the castle section, and that allowed his teammate George to claim P2. Of course, George got his first podium appearance and the best result of his season so far, especially as he didn't show up for Australia, got 8th at Bahrain. Then at China, he was battling for a very good position in top 5, but he disconnected from the lobby and couldn't come back, so 0 points for him. And then at Azerbaijan, he got P2. His teammates, on the other hand, managed to win at China, actually taking advantage of a mistake between Lira and one of the Toro Rossos, if I'm not mistaken. At that time there was contact coming out of the last corner, both spun out, and Colored Lonely was able to take his first win of the season, his first podium appearance of that season as well, and he got a P3 at Azerbaijan, so hopefully he can get an improvement on that result. Let's see how he does though. It's about to complete his lap on the softs. which is surprising to me, even though he's not really pushing his engine mode. Maybe he got his lap nullified. Let's try to take a look. No, he's still posted a lap time of 1:19.9, so I'm not sure how much he was pushing on those or not. We do have some other drivers. Radek gets himself in the pits, Wheelzok as well, and we have George get himself P2 on the mediums. Let's see what Delta does, as he's also about to cross the line, I would say. Is he? Oh, yes, damage on the left side of his front wing, so yeah, he's not going to be pushing anytime soon. Unfortunately for him, he hasn't set a lap time yet. We do have enough time for him to come back into the pits for a replacement and go for a flying lap. But yeah, Wizok and Radek aborting their laps, which is surprising to me. So they haven't improved on that 6th and 7th place respectively. But we are now following Cuba, as the Czech driver of the Mercedes got P2 at Australia, P4 at Bahrain, but since then hasn't scored a single point, with DNS at China and the DNF at Azerbaijan. Actually a very disastrous Azerbaijan Grand Prix, a double DNF from the Mercedes team when they were actually running in the top 5. They were having very good pace as well, but both crashed out of the race. Multiple laps apart. It wasn't a collision between the two of them, even though they were quite similarly fast in terms of their pace. But yeah, let's see what they do. We do have Gary Gunn going out there on a 1-lap old tires, Gozieg as well, but I'm not sure if they are going to improve, if they are going to come back into the pits. So let's see what Cuba does. He's getting himself now on the approach to turn number 1. 100 meters away from it, drop down to 4th gear, abuse the curbs as much as possible, because they can actually help you turn in the game. Now full throttle planted to the floor as you go up through the gears before approaching turn number 4. Also a very sensitive braking zone as you try to blend the braking with the steering motion as well. Of course called trail braking, right? But you try to do it to the best of your ability to get the best lap time, as he's now getting himself way to the 2nd sector, getting uphill to turns 8 and 9. Up to the gears once again before throwing the car into corner number 9. Just a kiss on the curb with his front right tire as he comes out very cleanly as well. Now waiting for the 100-meter marker board. Drops down to 2nd gear. Some drivers prefer the 1st. Cuba a little bit wide there on the curbs. Not sure if the game is going to nullify his lap. Also went over the curb in corner number 11. But sometimes that unsettles the car. That time was not the case, avoiding the big sausage curb on the inside of turn number 14, getting over it in the 15th corner, now through 16. Very clean exit, is going to cross over the line, and it is a new pole position time, 1:18.9. First driver to get himself under the 1:19's brilliant lap there from Cuba. Very well done from him, as most cars are on the pits for the time being, and only car out there on the mediums is Colored Lonely. So Colored Lonely wasn't pushing on his first flying lap, so he's going to try to beat that 1:19.9 on the mediums, and Solo having wing damage, so I'm not sure if he's going to have a go at it. I think he could still have time to come into the pits and try out again. Yeah, looks like he's going to the pits and he's going to give it another try. But yeah, we do have Colored Lonely and Wizok on their out laps. Wizok just started with the 2nd sector. Colored Lonely is in turn 9 at this time. So we're going to see, it's going to be of course Colored Lonely, then Wizok, then Progza, according to their order in which they started their out laps. We have Cuba getting back into the pits after his flying lap. Taraku unfortunately has not been able to post a fastest lap time, so he's probably going to start from last. And Overseer posted a lap time, but it's not really competitive, and he has retired from the session. Unfortunately, don't know if he crashed or if it was connection issues, but the Indian is not going to be able to get into the top 10. Let's see how Colored Lonely does. Let's get on board with the Racing Point driver. The Serbian Racing Point driver gets himself to turn 1 a little bit wider, could have taken it a bit tighter. Gets now as aggressive as he can on the throttle. A slight lift there. Of course, those mediums don't provide as much grip as the softs. Getting hard on the brakes once again, down to 4th gear, about 150 kilometers per hour on the apex of that corner. So now approach this much slower turn number 5, getting through the left-hand king of turn number 6. At the start of the curve on the right-hand side is where you brake for this chicane of turns 7 and 8, as you throw the car in as hard as you can through turn number 9. A little bit of lack of commitment there from Colored Lonely adds to lift off a little bit. He's still improving on his lap time, but he could be doing much better than that through turn 9. Is now start to go uphill to the long corner number 12. Of course, coming out of it, if you touch the curbs on the outside, you can spin, so you have to look out for that one. Great attack or angle of attack to the chicane as it gets now under traction, heavy traction as well. Through the last corner is going to cross over the line, and it's going to be a 119.7, pulls him up past his teammate, but yeah, he didn't quite improve on his last sector. He's still going to start the race on those mediums. In the meantime, we've had Wizok complete his lap time, 120.1. We also have Progza about to complete his lap time. He's not improving. He's in fact, well, he's losing time by 600ths of a second for the time being. Looks like he made any mistake because he's on 0 ERS and is going to abort his lap. In the meantime, let's take a look. Cuba is going through turn 9. We have George right in front of him, also preparing his lap. We have Lasher about to start his flying lap, and Delta is getting himself through the first sector, and Solo is also starting his flying lap. So we have Delta, then it is Lasher, then and Solo, I believe. Let's see how it goes for them at this point with the Ferrari, who is making his debut here today as he is replacing Rob Stark. Rob Stark has come to a point where he's unable to compromise himself with showing up most races, so he just decided to leave the league, unfortunately. So Delta is here to replace him, doing his debut. He actually got demoted from the first tier as Lyra got promoted. The Haas driver was just dominating the championship, so he got promoted to the first tier. So let's see how Delta does now as he's getting himself his Ferrari number 37 through the last corners of the Spanish layout, as the checkered flag is starting to be shown to most of the drivers. Let's see how he does. He's going to get himself through the line, and it is new pole position, 118.9, new fastest lap on the table. Oh, sorry, actually not. It was P2. I read that one wrong. 118.996 for Delta, P2. Let's see what Lasher does. Going to get himself P6 with 119.768. 300ths of a second separating him from Colored Lonely. In the meantime, we have Georgia going on his third sector as well. He is improving, if I did look at that one right. Let's see how he does. Very good camera shot there from our helicopter crew. Let's see how he gets now through the last corner. Mode number 5 on the ERS. DRS wide open at the back of his racing point, and it is Pete Ray with a 119.1, getting himself on the second row of the grid. Cuba does not improve as he does a 118.904, so he does not improve by a thousandth of a second, but he does maintain pole for the time being, as that is it for the qualifying session, and soon we are going to have the official results. So thank you Codemasters for the XP, and as you can see, it is Cuba in P1, 93 thousandths of a second separating him and Delta, very close between the two, as George the Bolivian gets himself P3. Progza occupies the fourth place, as Radek and Colored Lonely occupy the third row of the grids. Then we have Lasher and Crime, as Wizox and Gary Gunn close out the top 10. Then we have Goziag, followed by Anselo, Overseer and Taraku are going to be starting with a free choice of tires. So let's see how it goes for him. But yeah, in the meantime, it is raining. Ooh, it is raining, so a little bit of an oversight there from Colored Lonely, qualifying on the mediums. The race is going to start under wet conditions. The race is going to start on the intermediates, and I am not sure if there's going to be any changes. I'm actually going real quick to ask somebody. I'm going to ask one of the drivers, is the rain stopping at any point? No one told me what the weather is going to be, so I'm just asking Delta and see if he comes back to me. But yeah, while we wait for everyone to get through their formation laps, Delta is telling me no, it doesn't think so. So I actually do not know what is the pit window for the intermediates, and I was going to talk about the strategies, but it's thrown out of the window, right? Because apparently it's going to rain for a long time. So yeah, it's going to be quite interesting. It is also interesting that Carl only opted to start in well, opted to qualify on the mediums, so he's going to be a bit further down the order, and he probably would have at the start of the race. He's in the middle of the pack, and everything can happen in the middle of the pack, especially in a rain-affected race. But yeah, there we have Cuba and Delta on the front row. Delta having a good start of his season with his debut here today, so not too bad for him, getting himself demoted from P2, from Tier 1 to P2 to Tier 2 rather. Why? I can't speak today, sorry about that. But yeah, he got demoted from Tier 1 to Tier 2 and gets P2 in his first qualifying session, so he's obviously fast enough to be competitive in this tier. Let's see how it goes for him in the race. Of course, qualifying is most times a different beast than the race. So yeah, we're going to find out how it's going to be. These drivers must make sure, especially as it is raining, they must make sure their tires and brakes are up to temperature, especially to get the cleanest getaway possible, because in the rain lots of people are going to have wheel spin, so getting your brakes and tires warmed up might help you quite a bit, not only on the getaway itself but also on the rundown into turn number 1. It's a very long rundown into turn number 1, one of the longest in the entire calendar, if not the longest. So it is going to be quite interesting to see who gets a good start and who is able to gain some positions. Of course, sometimes you might even get a good start but then be boxed in with your competitors ahead of you, right? Who are getting various degrees of good or bad starts, right? And you might not find a way through. But there you have it then. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 red lights. Lights out, and away we go for the Spanish Grand Prix. George, and no, that was, yes, that was George going very slowly, actually gets it in the rear by one of the Toro Rossos and is in the wall. Delta jumps to P1, Cuba with a very bad start. It is a Ferrari 1-2 at the moment. Radek is going to try to take advantage of that one, but it is Delta in P1, Proxa P2 looking from the outside, Cuba in P3, Radek P4, Kram P5, Colored Lonely maintains P6. What a start from Radek so far. Great start indeed. Now the Racing Point might try to have a look at the inside of Lasher. No, it does not. Taraku is going to try to overtake Lee oversteer, and he spins. A spin there. There was contact with the Racing Point and the Toro Rosso, and is down to P14. At this point, the Swizok, sorry, Oversteer completely misses his braking zone and slams right into the back of Lasher, who fortunately was able to recover his car. Wizok also was not able to overtake the Haas, so Oversteer is going to struggle quite a lot in the upcoming corners. Sorry, actually that wasn't Oversteer. Sorry about that. That was... Wait, I'm confused now, because I saw who has damage. No, it is Oversteer having damage. In the meantime, Delta and Proxa are still coming to blows. The Mercedes are really trying to pick up any pieces, and Taraku has already retired from the session. Let's say not the greatest spot to retire your car in, but yeah, and yeah, that just deployed the virtual safety car. So it is what it is. George gets a 5-second penalty for colliding with Gary Gunn. So there was a collision under virtual safety car. George gets a 5-second penalty for that one, and he has front wing damage. He could try to take advantage of that situation to pit, and he is doing exactly that. So getting ourselves back on the oh, there's another crash, but in Oversteer and Lasher. It's the second time Oversteer crashes with Lasher, and he drops down behind Goziag. Not sure what happened there, not sure if he's going to be able to take his position back. And yeah, he's completely missed the corner there. He has considerable wing damage, I would say, at this point, as Ansel is starting to close in on him. And yeah, he has basically no wing in the right side of his car, so is going to get himself back to the back of the pack as Cuba on the restart. You have green flag racing again, and Cuba jumps Progza on the restarts. The Austrian drops down to P3, and now it is both Czech drivers of the Mercedes around that Ferrari in P3 for the time being. Crime is handling himself well in P5, and Colored Lonely isn't too far behind. Let's see how it develops as we have switch there. We have a battle. The camera is not helping me, but we have a battle as Delta gets himself wide. Cuba is coming back at him. Radek has a prime sitting deals for that one. Progza almost lost the rear there and gets himself down to P3. In the meantime, Colored Lonely has probably had contact with Crime, or maybe Crime just missed his braking zone, and he has dropped even behind Lasher at that point. So yeah, Lasher just says thank you very much and gets himself up to P5. There was contact between Lasher and Crime possibly, because he's going into the pits. Cuba sets the fastest lap of the race. Is he going to be close enough to challenge Delta? No, he is not close enough. Is Colored Lonely? No, he is not at the time being. He's going to maintain himself in P5 for the time being. Garrigan gets the fastest lap of the race as Overseer gets into the pits, so the Renault is promoted up to P10. Georgia is quite far behind, but he does have very good pace, so maybe he can still salvage some points at this state of the race. Jumping back to the front, we have Delta still leading, pulling away slightly from Cuba. It's already a bigger gap from the Mercedes to the Ferrari than the Mercedes to the Ferrari behind. And then Radek is already 1 second behind. Of course, no DRS available, but if there was, he would already be out of DRS range. Colored Lonely is closing quite a bit to the back of the Mercedes, but Cuba, a little bit of a tank slapper there from Progza. Let's also follow. Will Colored Lonely be able to have a go? No, he does not. No one is able to overtake, but Progza has a gap that to fit his Ferrari. That was close, and once again Progza is really playing with fire. That curb can send you spinning in a heartbeat, and it is the second time he goes for that one. In the meantime, Wizok and Solo swap positions there as well into the airpin, so the Williams gets himself up to P8, so good start of the race for him so far. And yeah, with that mistake from Cuba, Delta pulls away over a second already. Delta is in fact going to get the fastest lap of the Grand Prix. Crime is going to beat him with a 1:34.6, so good lap there from the Alfa Romeo driver. And Wizok is coming back at end Solo. They are side by side. Let's see who gets the best end of the deal coming into turn 1. And Solo does respond. He's going to get inside into turn 1. It's going to turn into the inside for turn number 2. He gets squeezed wide. Wizok a little bit there. I don't think Anselo was too polite, but nonetheless, Anselo is going to maintain his P8 for the time being. Let's jump to the driver in P5 at this point. It actually looks like he had a quite slow turn 4. Crime closed right up on him, and he lost time to Radek, because you can see quite clearly how much Delta has pulled off from Cuba, and how much time Progza is losing to the Czech driver. And Radek, fortunately, because of the mistake of Colored Lonely into turn 4, is able to get himself a little bit of a buffer. The rear complaining there a little bit, and Crime did very well to avoid the back of the racing point, gets himself up to P5. Great opportunistic maneuver there, and is going to claim a place into the top 5. Very well done from the number 6. So looking down at the order, Wizok and Solo are battling it out once again. Those two are having a great battle. Now Wizok giving back the favor, squeezing and Solo a little bit there, as Colored Lonely actually forces the overtake into the last chicane. Crime does look like he got a better turn 14, and he's going to get inside all the way to the exit of the corner. It's now going to be a drag race for these two. Let's see, Colored Lonely does have a little bit more of ERS available to him, and he is going to pull away. Maybe less wing settings allowed him to pull away just at the last moment there, or maybe just more courage on the brakes, and he gets himself up to P5. Even though that battle was very costly in terms of the attack to the top 4, Lasher does get the fastest lap of the race. He, in the meantime, has gone through the pits and is back out 14 seconds away from the top 10. So Crime is really pressurizing Colored Lonely at this point. We might still see a couple battles between these two. In the meantime, Han Solo, after that battle in the third sector with Wizok, Han Solo is 1.5 seconds behind him. In fact, Gary Gunn is closer to the Williams than the Williams is to the Toro Rosso. And taking a look, let's see if anyone is close enough to challenge anyone. Doesn't look like that for the time being. It is, yes, Proxa is not close enough. Crime is also not close enough. In the meantime, Colored Lonely has been able to catch up with Radek. So Colored Lonely, despite being 2 seconds away at the beginning of his lap, that's just how good he is at the moment. Number 13 feeling better now in duets. He did struggle a little bit early on, but he is showing himself quite comfortable at the moment, or at least more comfortable than the Mercedes ahead of him, and he's already within a second. Let's see how it goes. It looks like he did get a better exit. He's on the slipstream of the Mercedes, mode number 4 on the ERS. Radek is only on mode number 3, but he also has less ERS at his disposal. Let's see how it goes. Colored Lonely, even before the braking zone, already has the move done. A great easy maneuver there from Colored Lonely, who gets himself up to a P4, and now Colored Lonely is 3 seconds away from Proxa. He has been able to close 2 seconds to Radek, but Proxa has been a little bit quicker than the Mercedes driver we are on board with, so it's going to be a little bit of a more difficult task for Colored Lonely to catch up with the top 3. Proxa is still maintaining himself less than 1 second from Kuba, as Crime might take advantage of that, and there was a little bit of a mistake there from Radek, going a little bit wide into turn number 5. Crime is going to try a little bit of a squirmy rear on the weight transfer, a little bit too aggressive for the rear tires liking, and Radek also having a little bit of a tank slapper. You can see the Alfa Romeo lining up the sides and is going to throw himself down the inside. Radek is going to fight back with everything he has, but maybe a lag moment there. He just dropped behind Crime, and that didn't give him any fighting chance. He gets himself down to P6. A mistake there from Crime again, and Radek isn't going to take any prisoners. He's going to give himself down the inside. Crime extending the track there a little bit there. He's forcing Radek wide as well. Radek does cut the chicane quite a bit. Koziag has been able to catch up quite a lot, and look at how Colored Lonely pulled away. That is quite feisty battle, and allowed Colored Lonely to get very lonely ahead. Crime with the slipstream with mode number 4 of ERS sails past Radek, so ultimately it is the Alfa Romeo claiming P5 as his own. And in terms of Radek, yes, he had to fight there, of course, don't blame him for that one, but that hurt him quite a bit. There are some times where you might just not try it. Crime did have that mistake, but the time you lose battling, now you have to worry about Kozieg, which is basically 1 second behind, right? So it did more harm than good to the Czech driver's race, the fact that he tried to get back at Crime after that mistake. That was a really feisty fight. We like to see that, of course, but yeah, at this moment at least not the greatest for the Czechs race. In the meantime, Cuba has started to close in on Delta, so possibly a mistake there from Delta as he goes on the brakes on the curb, and he's possibly going to lose the position for the Ferrari. Let's see, it's going to be a traction battle. Proxa loses out on traction and is not able to get himself back up into P3. That only helped Colored Lonely, who was able to close the gap a little bit because of the mistake from Kuba, and of course Proxa attacking had to go to the inside, so of course not the racing line, not the quickest way around the corner. So Colored Lonely is already within a second of Proxa, although maybe a mistake there. Proxa feels like he's too far away now. Did he have a mistake coming out of the last corner? I'm not... what happened? Maybe a lag moment. Oh, sorry, I was following on board. I was following the wrong on board. I'm sorry about that. I thought I was on Colored Lonely on board, but I was on Cuba. That's why the Ferrari was so far ahead. Okay, I apologize for that confusing moment there. But yeah, as you can see, Crime has already pulled away 3 seconds from Radek, and Koziag is going to start closing in on Radek. Wizok is also not too far behind the Koziag, and there's actually a mistake from the McLaren, I believe, and Wizok is going to sail himself past and up to P7, and Solo in the meantime hasn't been able to hook up any laps. He's 5 seconds behind the 8th placed car, and is actually being given close chase by Gary Gunn. As we approach turn number 5, Gary Gunn is going to try to look at improving his position. The rain doesn't show any signs of slowing down for the time being, so these cars, I'm not sure it is lap 33, I'm sure they would probably just pit at the midway point of the race, so it would be about lap 16, 17 for them to make their pit stops and take intermediates until the end of the race. I believe under these conditions, if the rain doesn't stop until the end, the one stop is the way to go. Let's see how it goes. Jumping back to the front, Cuba is very close to Delta. Let's try to find out if he's going to be able to pull off an overtake maneuver. Progza looks like he done a mistake somewhere along the way, because Progza is now getting hunted by Colored Lonely. Let's see, does Cuba pull off a maneuver? He's going to pull himself to the inside, take a look, but he's going to refrain from him. Colored Lonely does not get himself the same treatment to the Ferrari, though. He's going to have a go at it, and Wizok overtakes Radek. Wizok overtakes Radek. Great recovery drive from Wizok since the beginning of the race. Apart from his contact with George early on the race, he's been able to get himself a clean race after that and gets himself up to P6. Gary Gunn is battling against Solo, and Gary Gunn does move himself up to a P9, so the Renault driver recovering a few positions, I believe. I'm actually going to look at the position changes. Yeah, Gary Gunn started P10 and is moving up to a P9 at this point. Now, taking a look at the battle for the top positions once again. There's a mistake from Colored Lonely. I don't know if there was contact, but Colored Lonely has gotten himself. He actually went into the pause to rejoin, to teleport back into the track. Maybe it saved him time. I don't know. I'm going to try to take a look. The camera isn't helping me at all. God damn it. But I'm trying to find out. As there's yellow flag in sector 2. That is Han Solo, perhaps? Ooh, there is quite a bit of carbon fiber off the front wing of the Williams. Gets very wide to turn number 9. George is going to sail on by. Cuba gets himself in the pits, and Progza moves up a place. Colored Lonely, he does not have front wing damage. Crucially for his race, he managed to keep himself off the wall. He does have the pace, he does have clean air in front of him, so he's going to try to push his hardest to catch up to the cars ahead. It's now Crime 3 seconds behind the top 2, as we have a 1-2 for the Ferraris at the moment, as Cuba is getting himself out of the pits. Gary Gunn moves up to P8, as Cuba is the first one to go into the pits. We also had the yellow flags in sector 3. Perhaps it was Han Solo going very slowly, because understandably he has considerable amounts of damage on that front wing. He's going to have to take it to the pits. He might actually retire, we don't know, but let's see how it goes for him. Georgia is 10 seconds away from Lasher, who is within a second from Cuba at this point. So Georgia, if he has any good luck come his way until the end of the race, he might get himself a considerable amount of points. Let's see how it goes. Of course, a safety car is basically the only option for George to contest again for the top 5, but weirder things have happened, right? So let's see how it goes. Lasher is giving chase to Cuba, despite the Czech driver being on brand new tires and Lasher being on 7-lap old tires. So let's see how that develops between these two. Cuba gets a little bit wide through the airpin once again, and we have Wizok, who is keeping himself within a second of Colored Lonely. Colored Lonely is quite ways away from the top 3, but we do have Delta. The leader is coming into the pits. He's going to switch on the brand new set of the intermediate tires. And are we looking at the 3-stop? I'm not sure, as Oversteer retires from the session. Was there a crash? I would like to find out if there was a crash or not. Oversteer is so far ahead of Han Solo that I actually do not know. I'm going to go on board with him until I find out. Delta comes out of the pits behind Cuba. So Cuba is inheriting the lead of this Grand Prix. And I'm going to try and find out where Overseer retired. Where is Han Solo going to overtake him? Yeah, it was at the exit of turn number 9. As you can see on the left, on the inside wall there, the carbon fiber pieces from the front wing of the Toro Rosso. So yeah, unfortunately, it is the end of his race. Lasher overtakes Delta. A little bit of battle, as Lasher wasn't able to overtake Cuba, but is able to overtake Delta. That might take a knock at his chances, as he now needs to make quick work of the odds if he wants to have any chance at taking the lead of the race. I would say at this point it is Cuba inheriting the lead of the race, even though he's not getting the best line to turn number 9. That's going to slow him down quite a bit as he overtakes Gary Gunn. But he does have to push. He does know that the more time he loses battling his rivals that haven't pitted yet, the more chance is given. Oh, as Crime gets a 10-second time penalty for exceeding track limits. Probably cut the chicane there, but wow, that is a heavy penalty to endure. Progza is going to get himself in the pits. He's going to get now P1, considering both Delta and Cuba have dealt with traffic. Colored Lonely, of course, overtakes him. He hasn't pitted yet. We have the Toro Rosso of Wizok. We have Koziak. We have Radek into the pits as well. We have, let's see, there's someone else. I believe there is Gary Gunn into the pits. Cuba does jump the Ferrari, and Lasher is going to be close, but he does the same. He gets himself past the Ferrari. So Cuba is now in the net lead of this Grand Prix. I'm wondering if the drivers pitted earlier because they know the rain is going to stop, or if they just ran out of life on their tires, or if they are going to go for a two-stop rather. I'm rather confused, I would say. But yeah, George gets himself back in the top 10. Unfortunately for him, he still has to pit, so he's going to get jumped by a lot of people once he does. Garrigan has relegated to outside the points by George overtaking him, but soon George has to pit at some point, unless he's going for the one stop and he's going to try to suffer a bit on his tires. Crime is 10 seconds away from Colored Lonely, so at this point I would say Crime does have the advantage, especially with this penalty. He's still ahead, but yeah, it's all going to come down to the tire management skills of these drivers. Crime was keeping up with Colored Lonely until he made a big mistake, and he is going to the pits at the moment. Colored Lonely, let's find out. He's on 0 ERS. Is he going to do the same? Looks like he is not doing the same. He's going to carry on for another lap. Maybe Colored Lonely is going to go long on these tires, just pulling off the one. So I don't know, because yeah, at this point, if they can only do about 12 laps on the intermediates, I don't think they can pull off a one stop, right? Unless the rain is going to stop, but even then they have to stop again. So I would say Colored Lonely is going to go long on those tires, as Crime rejoins much closer to Delta in Proxa than he was before. In fact, Delta has dropped from the net lead of the race to the net P3. Crime is very close to him. He's actually going to take advantage of a mistake there from the Ferrari driver. He's going to get alongside him on the approach to turn number 4. He does own the inside line, the number 6, as he gets himself past the 37. Great maneuver there. Great opportunistic maneuver from Crime as he moves himself up to P5, showing everyone what he is made of. And he is at the moment just matching his best finishing result. He got also a 5th place at Bahrain. Since then he got 10th at China and 8th at Azerbaijan, but yeah, currently matching his best race result so far. So let's see if he can get an even better result than that. Of course, in terms of the overall strategy, Lasher is still yet to pit, and Colored Lonely the same, right? So I would say these guys are going to give the other drivers a boost in the standings, but let's find out. Lasher is only now arriving the end of his 10th lap on the intermediates. There's a big mistake there from Progza, completely basically ignoring the second half of that chicane. But let's see how it goes. Despite the tire wear, Lasher is conserving himself on a very good pace. As looking at his history, he does have very good results, I would say. P3 at Australia, P2 at Bahrain, P4 at China, and P4 at Azerbaijan. So every single race finished in the top 5. So he does have very competent pace. Did not have the best of luck in the opening laps, but he's just right now showing what he's got, showing his pace, and yeah, just trying his best to conserve himself in P3 despite his issues with tires that he's probably going to suffer soon. Georgia also has very good pace. A bit of misfortune, especially at China, and looks like here today he also had a catastrophic start of the race. but it is what it is, and he's going to try to keep his chin up and work with that one. As we have Crime giving very close chase to Proxa. He already pulled off 3 seconds on Delta and is chasing the cars ahead. Cuba on only 4 laps old tires is not gaining that much on Colored Lonely, so I'd say Colored Lonely is going to pit a bit later, I would say, and try his best to get the one stop done. I think it's the only option for both Colored Lonely and Lasher, and also Georgia, if they can last. I don't know if the Racing Point's teammates are communicating on Discord or somewhere to the same effect, but if they are communicating, they must be, both of them, trying their hardest to go long on these tires. As we have Crime, let's see, he's on the slipstream and he has mode number 4 of ERS available to him. He got back down to 0. He considered himself not quick enough to have a run at Proxa. Didn't really want to risk going later on the brakes without being properly alongside before the braking zone. So he's going to refrain himself, going to get himself maintaining in P5. Delta is still losing time. He's really not comfortable in the second stint of intermediates. He's keeping on losing time to everyone in the top 5. Very unfortunate stuff. And Crime, he does need to get a move on because he knows he has that 10-second time penalty. Proxa is showing signs of not being just as quick as Crime. He's quick enough to keep himself ahead, but not as quick as the Alfa Romeo, was the Bulgarian driver of the Alfa Romeo. So he's going to try to get himself, as there is a big mistake to the chicane, but nonetheless he's going to try to get himself back on target and gain as much time as he can to the top 5 contestants, because he does know he has that 10-second time penalty and he needs to make up for that one. Moving up to Cuba, he is finally dropping the gap less than 6 seconds between Cuba and Colored Lonely. There is a 9-lap discrepancy between the usage of the intermediates from the Mercedes and the Racing Point. As George has a mistake and he's out. Is that turn 9? No, that is the chicane of turn 7 and 8. He spins. Oh no, that's actually the chicane of turns 11 and 12. But I was telling you guys, that can bite you in the rear, especially if you take the curb too aggressively. And he's back out of the points even, and I would say it is absolutely race over for the Bolivian. And yeah, very bad luck today for the Racing Point driver. Very unfortunate stuff. Crime is back within a second of Proxa yet again. Cuba actually lost time in that first sector. Gary Gunn overtakes Radek, and there's contact between the two, and Radek has been going downhill since the start of the race. He had a very good start, actually maintained himself in the contest for the top 4 positions along with his teammate and both Ferraris, but since then he's going downhill. I don't know if he has front wing damage, that's just not showing up on my screen, but he's down to P10 at this point. His pace is severely dropped since lap 6, I would say. So really struggling to get a comfortable pace on these tires. Even Garrigan is quicker than him at these points. So as unfortunate as it is, maybe he can get his act together and get back with a good performance. Slasher has closed in on Cuba, who got time to Colored Lonely, but he lost out right away. And Colored Lonely goes into the pits. And I assume, oh god, I'm sorry about that, I'm going to switch back. He got the revs glitch. So we have Lasher getting himself up to P2. Of course, he's going to try to challenge Cuba. Is he closing in at enough of a rate? No, he is not. He's going to maintain himself behind. Crime is too far behind to attack, and Colored Lonely is going to come out of the pits comfortably in P6. He does have, at least in the best of cases, that is Crime, he has 5 laps fresher tires. So Colored Lonely might not have to take these tires until the end. Lasher definitely has to pit stop at least once, right? But yeah, there is a bit of an advantage, especially considering Crime is about 15 seconds away from Colored Lonely. Colored Lonely, I am sure is going to start to put up faster laps because he has fresher tires, and he does have the clean air for him to just focus on what he has on the job at hand and try to get the best laps possible. Doesn't have back markers, doesn't have competitors, so yeah, he just has to keep his head down, mind his apexes, get his corner exits right, and at the end I would say it would get an advantage on all of them. Of course, if all these guys are pitting again, they will have a massive tire advantage, but yeah, some of these guys weren't really catching up much to Colored Lonely, given the difference on tire life. I would expect them to start closing in much quicker, but they weren't doing so. So Colored Lonely has very, very quick pace. Lasher resists once again, goes on his 15th lap on those tires, and is dropped out a little bit to Cuba. Of course, Cuba does have better tires. Progza does have even better tires than than Cuba rather, at this point. So he's going to maintain himself in P2. Crime is still trying his best to overtake Progza. Progza is just quick enough to keep himself ahead. Crime is really having a tough time getting past. If Crime was able to get past Progza, I am sure. Oh, there might be, yes, Crime is finally had enough of sitting behind Progza. Does get a better exit out of turn 4, and is through. And now, let's see how quickly can Crime overtake Lasher, because he was quicker than Progza. Lasher is very competent, but he does have 15 laps old tires. It is 10 lap difference between the Alfa Romeos and the Haas's tires. So it is going to be interesting to see the pace difference between the Alfa Romeo and the Haas. So I'm really excited to see if he's actually going to have enough traction. I'm going on board with him, actually. Ooh, a little bit of a moment from Lasher. Crime also had a moment, but not as big one. That is a big one, though. He actually goes wide. Will Progza try to take advantage of that? No, he was too far behind. As we have yellow flags in Sector 1, I can't quite tell who that was. Is it Anselo? Is it Georgia? Looks like it was Georgia. Did he get front wing damage? I can't tell. No, he did not get front wing damage. So he's going to be able to fight once again. Lasher finally goes into the pits. Inherits, or Crime inherits P2. Progza inherits P3. Let's take a look at Colored Lonely, as I do want to know if he's going to be able, as he does get the fastest lap of the race. Only driver to get himself below the 133 so far in this race. Lasher does lose out the place to Colored Lonely. And Lasher is going to come out of the pits, I would say 7, maybe 9 seconds behind the racing point. Still ahead of Wizok, crucially for him, even though Wizok is within a second now. But I think Lasher will be able to pull away, especially since he has better tires. But let's see how that one develops. Colored Lonely is already 7 seconds, less than 7 seconds away from Delta. Progza is just 3 seconds away from him, so I would say about 10 seconds of a gap, and then Crime isn't too far away, so Colored Lonely can get back at Crime. Crime knows that he still has his 10-second penalty, so everyone around him, they might not even battle too hard, because Crime does have that penalty. So the more Crime battles with the other guys, the worse is going to be at the end of the race, especially as Colored Lonely and Lasher are going to start gaining lap time, I would say, because of the freshness of their tires. I would also expect these guys in the top 4 to all pit eventually. Cuba, I would expect him to pit within the next 3 laps for another set of intermediates. The rain is once again not showing any signs of slowing down. I don't see any opening on the clouds, and Cuba, he actually goes exactly at lap 10 for another set of intermediates. So he does speed as I was predicting. He's going to actually try to cut his losses as well, which is, I would say, the best option. He might struggle a little bit with the tires at the end of the race. Colored Lonely is going to overtake him. Is Lasher going to do so as well? Let's find out. And he does overtake him, so Cuba has dropped down. And Wizok is actually going to get away with it as well. Is Goziag? No, Goziag looks like he's too far behind. And now Cuba does have to contend with Wizok, and I'm pretty sure he would be faster at this point, but Wizok is no slouch. At least under these circumstances, he has done a great race. I'm actually interested in seeing how many positions he has gained. He qualified in P9, gained 3 positions. The driver who has gained the most has been Crime, as Crime does a mistake. Crime has a mistake, I believe, or no, that wasn't a mistake, or maybe it was a mistake, just not enough to make him spin. Progza gets back to the lead of the Grand Prix. Progza is frustrating Crime quite a bit, I would say. Crime had so much work to get past the Austrian driver, and now he's going to look himself having to do it all over again. Now, taking another look at Wizok, who's just gotten overtaken by Cuba into turn number 10, so Cuba making quick work of him, good to see. And Crime is getting back at Progza as Progza gets himself into the pits. Delta is going to continue on. I would say Colored Lonely is going to get past him. Lasher, I would say as well, let's see. I would say Cuba is also going to get himself ahead of the Ferrari. Of course, the undercut does work. Lasher with the new fastest lap of the Grand Prix with the 132.2, if I saw that one correctly. But yeah, Progza even drops down behind Wizok. Is he going to drop behind the McLaren? It is going to be as George retires from the session. I would actually like to know if that was a crash. Oh, maybe a crash between Anselo and George, because... No, I think those were two separate incidents, because Anselo hasn't overtaken George in the table. So yeah, Anselo also has his moments, and George, I'm not sure why a safety car is not deployed. George at this day go from bad to worse, and is dropped down. Colored Lonely less than 5 seconds away from Delta and Crime. He knows Crime is in the bag at this point, especially with his 10-second penalty, but Delta, he needs to start closing in. Ooh, a little bit of a mistake there, getting too deep into turn 10. Delta hasn't shown to be able to keep up with Crime too much, so I would expect Crime to start pulling away. I would expect Delta, in fact, to pit at this lap. So let's see if he actually does it or not. Let's see how it goes for him. No, he does not pit at this lap. He's going to extend his stint, I would say, for at least one more lap, as Anselo just got lapped as he's getting himself into the pits to switch tires and front wing once again. So really unfortunate race for Anselo as well, who also had a good start, but at this point he's not really able to get anything going. Is he actually on mediums? Is the game trolling me? I don't think he's on mediums. I think the game is trolling me. Oh, in the meantime, Progza gets past Wizok into turn number 1. And yeah, that was a bit expected, of course. But yeah, Wizok drops down to P7. He does have old tires. That battle brought Goziag a little bit closer to the Toro Rosso. So we might actually end up having a battle between the Canadian and the British driver ahead of him. Let's see, it might be a spicy battle for P7. So let's see how that one develops until the end of the race. Colored Lonely, 3 seconds away from Delta. Delta has lost out a little bit to Crime. So let's see how it goes for them, as Colored Lonely has been closing in on Delta for the past few laps. Delta is dropping a little bit to Crime, but not too much. He has only dropped 3/10 in the previous lap. Let's see, will Delta finally come into the pits to get rid of his intermediate stripe, perhaps to pull off the undercut on Crime? Yes, he does. He is going to the pits. Of course, he got undercut by Lasher, by Cuba, and by Progza, so I am interested in seeing if he is going to come out of the pits ahead of those guys. As you can see, the pit crew at the Ferrari is prepared to serve him. He's going to get out of the pits on the brand new set of intermediates. He drops down behind Lasher, drops down behind Cuba, and drops down behind Progza. Goziag is going to overtake him as well, I believe. No, they are both in the pits. Both Wizok and Goziag are in the pits. Or no, actually, no, it was Garrigan who entered the pits. I saw 3 people enter the pits. I thought it was Goziag. No, Wizok. Sorry. Sorry about that. Wizok is going to go on the undercut at Goziag. Garrigan also goes into the pits, but he's going to comfortably come out of the pits in P9. Radek has made his pit stop a while ago, but yeah, Radek is just too far behind. He's not really able to get anything going for his side today. He had a very good qualifying performance in the dry, but in the rain he just isn't able to have the same pace. Now, at the moment, Crime does have a 10-second time penalty. I'm going to run it down the order a little bit to see if there are more penalties. 10 seconds and a warning for Crime. Colored Lonely has only a warning at his name. Lasher, 0 warnings. Cuba has only a warning. Then we have Progza without any warnings as well. Goziag with a warning only. Goziak, I would say, is too far behind, but I would say Crime is probably going to get demoted out of the top 5 because he still has to pit again, right? He might actually get lower than the top 5. He might actually finish behind Goziak and Wizok. It is interesting, but yeah, Crime does have that 10-second time penalty. Anyone in the top 6 has a penalty to his name, so that's going to increase the effect of his, or at least it's not going to help him be saved in terms of how many places he gets demoted. Goziak finally gets into the pits. Will Wizok catch up to his McLaren rival? He did the undercut. Let's see how it goes. He might be close between the two, and Goziak comes out behind Wizok. So Wizok extending the lead with that undercut. It is about 3.5 seconds now, the gap between the McLaren and the Toro Rosso. So the Canadian of the McLaren does need to find another gear if he wants to be able to contest for P7. So jumping back to the front, Color Lonely is continuing to reel Crime in. You can just see him going through turn 12 as the racing points approach turn number 10. And Lasher is maintaining the 5-second gap. Lasher has been able to do an amazing recovery. Lasher was in close to last place, if not last place, at the end of the 3rd lap, because he went into the pits with front wing damage. Managed to pull off the 1 stop where his rivals have done 2 stops. Oh, there's Lasher. I was complimenting him. Does he have front wing damage? Looks like he made a mistake of some sort because Kubrick just went past him. And maybe a mistake didn't result in front wing damage, but a big mistake, no doubt. Progza is going to tuck right behind the rear diffuser, and the rear wing of the Haas is going to get close enough. No, it does not get close enough. It's actually going on the brakes over the curb, as you can see that front left tire, which does not help, especially in the rain. Those curbs are quite slippery. Could have ended up locking up a tire, but yeah, Lasher losing 2 seconds to Cuba, losing maybe a chance to get on the podium. Let's see, it is not too big of a difference between Cuba's and Lasher's tire life, but yeah, Lasher is going to have to sweat a little bit and also worry about the Ferrari behind him. Let's see how that one develops, as we have yellow flags in Sector 2. Did Crime make a mistake? Not sure. No, it isn't Crime. Is it Ansolo? Ansolo is on the mediums. Why is Ansolo on the mediums? I have no idea. Hopefully it doesn't hold up anyone. I really hope it doesn't hold anyone up. But let's see, it's right on the racing line, coming out of turn number 12. He's coming back to the racing line. Oh my god, he's going to hold up. What is he doing? He massively held up Colored Lonely there, I believe. The perspective of the camera didn't quite show me the amount of space there was between Colored Lonely and Ansolo, but okay, now that we came back to him, he does have full set of mediums. He had half mediums, half intermediates a while ago. But yeah, he's going to the pits. He's probably going to retire. He's been lapped twice. It's just it for his chances of doing anything today. Even Radek is too far behind to contest for anything, but at least he's still going for the points. Colored Lonely still managed somehow. Maybe Crime is starting to struggle with his tires. I'm not sure Crime is going to pit until the end of the race, because at this point, just pitting for 6 laps, 7 laps, I'm not sure if he's going to do anything of it. Goziak shoots himself in the foot on his possible chances to get P7 from Wizok with a 3-second time penalty, so that is it from Goziak. Let's see how that one develops. I thought Crime was going to pit, but looks like Crime is going deep on his stint, and the rain isn't stopping though. Is he going to try to do the remaining 6 laps? 7 laps? Is he going to do 20 laps on intermediates? That is my question. I am very curious to see what he pulls off on this set of intermediates. He also wasn't, I don't believe, yeah, he was the first guy, one of the first guys to pit. He's the only driver to not pit a second time yet out of those that pitted at lap 10, 11 window, right? So yeah, Crime is compromising himself quite a bit. He gains time on Colored Lonely through the second sector there, but yeah, he's going to have a really tough time, I would say, keeping up the pace. Cuba has started to drop a little bit from Lasher. Lasher was able to pull away from Progza and is going to start reeling in Cuba unless the Romanian driver of the Oz does have any mistakes for his name. So let's see how that one develops. Of course, they are equidistant at this point, as Lasher has the same gap to the car ahead than he has to the car behind. As we have yellow flags in Sector 3. Isn't Solo doing something again? I don't know. Maybe he just had to pull away for Goziak to get through, and that caused the yellow flags, because they have been cleared. So let's see how it goes. But yeah, I'm rather interested in seeing what Crime does. Color Lonely doesn't need to push. He really only needs to manage the gap behind to Cuba, which is also very big, 10 seconds. Crime does have the 10 seconds to his name as well, so yeah, not much to be had at this point. Colored Lonely is going to win the Grand Prix if anything stays like that. Lasher gained quite a bit on Cuba. Maybe Cuba had a mistake into turn 9 and possibly into turn 10 as well, because he really closed in. You can see a bit of openings in the clouds at the moment. If you look up straight up at the sky, there are a few openings, but it doesn't look like the rain is stopping anytime soon though. If there are any openings, they are coming too late. Crime is praying to the racing gods that the rain stops eventually, but I don't think his prayers are going to be heard. Cuba did get a better exit out of the last corner, but Lasher is going to close in under braking. Much more confidence on the brakes of the Romanian in comparison to the Czech driver of the Mercedes, and the gap is about 6/10 at this point. Let's see how it is going to develop. It's going to be fun to see a battle between Lasher and Cuba. Both drivers are very competent. Of course, Cuba beat him in Australia. Cuba got himself P2 in Australia. Lasher got P3, but Cuba, either for misfortunate incidents or by just not showing up, hasn't been able to beat the Romanian in every single race since Australia. So Lasher maybe trying to get a bit of payback for Australia. Not sure if he even remembers what happened at Australia, but if he does, it's going to be interesting. Try to see if Lasher is going to try any sort of payback. He did have a bit of a slip up getting through turn 9, managed to keep control of his car. That was quite aggressive on the curbs as well, really playing with fire, the Romanian. But yeah, he's doing his best to keep up with Cuba's Mercedes. Let's see in the remaining laps what can he do. In the meantime, or what he can do. In the meantime, we're going to take a look. As you can see, only the top 2 are the only drivers who haven't pitted yet. Lasher basically has only pitted once in comparison to his rivals, because Lasher pitted at lap number 2 or 3 with front wing damage, and he just was able to take the intermediates for very long. His stint of intermediates after that lap 2 or 3 pit stop, he took them for 15 laps, and therefore was able to line himself up with his rivals in terms of the pit stops. So both him and Cuba have 2 stops at this point, as we have yellow flags in Sector 2. Anything with the leaders? No, they are in Sector 2, but it wasn't anything with them. Maybe Han Solo is in Sector 3. Gary Gunn perhaps? No, he's also in Sector 3. That must have been Radek. He's the only driver at the moment in Sector 3, I believe, that could have done anything to slow him down. Doesn't look like he has front wing damage, so whatever it was, he was able to recover from that. But yeah, taking a look at the position changes, Crime is the most position gained driver at the moment. After that, it is Colored Lonely, who actually had a quite big blunder in terms of his strategy, because Colored Lonely was the only driver to qualify on the mediums. Maybe he didn't realize it was going to start in wet circumstances and it was going to be an intermediate tire start, but he qualified on the mediums and got himself starting from P6. He still had the pace to get himself up to P2 and net race win, I would say, at this point. Yeah, Crime, for the time being, is the driver with the most positions gained. I'm not sure if he's actually going to end up the race with any positions gained at all. So it is a very severe 10-second penalty he has by his name. So yeah, let's see how it goes. He might get himself... Wizok is too far behind. Actually, never mind. At this point, he wouldn't drop behind Lasher. He would finish in P4. Crime would finish in P4 at this point ahead of Lasher. Sorry, no, it actually finished P3 rather. Yeah, Kilcodle only would win, Cuba P2, then Crime P3. So Crime would still get a podium despite his 10-second penalty. Let's take a look at his tire life. He has 17 laps on his intermediates. He is the driver that has taken his tires for the longest so far on this Grand Prix. He's going to take them for 20-21 laps. I'm pretty concerned that they might just explode on them, and then on top of his 10-second penalty, going to take away any chances of him of getting considerable amounts of points. Lasher, though, getting back to the Haas driver, is still right on the gearbox of Cuba. He's closer than ever before the number 13. He just can't get that extra step. A bit of a mistake there. That's going to unwind all the work he has been doing in the past few laps. That is over 1 second gap already, and might have just thrown away any chances of him taking a P3. Now, it is very unfortunate to see Lasher be where he is at the moment, and with all that, I would say Crime would even get P2 at this point, because Cuba is over 10 seconds behind. So Crime might not lose any time at all, apart from the position to Call It Lonely, who nonetheless is starting to close in already. As you can see from that camera, it's very close between the two. So yeah, Call It Lonely might actually even challenge Crime for the position anyways. So yeah, at this moment, Crime would get P2, because Cuba is 10 seconds behind Crime. At least, not even 10 seconds, it's bigger than that. Showing the gaps to the leader is 12 seconds, actually, at this point, basically. So yeah, Crime would only get himself, P2, which is not too shabby at all, especially considering is how brave that strategic choice is to go on 20 laps. The funny thing is that he pitted at lap 10 or 11, and now he's taking intermediates for twice as much, right? That is quite ironic, I would say. Oh, a big mistake there from Crime. Call It Lonely just says, thank you very much. Is there a puncture from Crime? I can't see now. I can't see. His car doesn't look like he's going straight. And there is a puncture. I can see from his mirror, there is a puncture on his rear left. Fortunately, it was right at the entry of the pits, but yeah, the tires gave up on him. I was just expecting that one to happen. It was a matter of when. If he managed to take them for 20 laps, it would have been an Herculean effort from both his tire conservation skills and also the tires themselves. But yeah, he's going to get himself in P6 at this point, and getting the gaps between each other is too far behind Wizok to lose out, but yeah, he's getting himself P6 for the time being. Lasher already back to within a second from Cuba. He only have 1.5 laps to go at this point. Does he pressurize Cuba into a mistake? He has been able to gain quite a bit in this last lap, so it is definitely going to be interesting. Crime might also get the 1 point for the fastest lap. Pretty sure he might now. Oh, that's a mistake from Delta, and Delta is in the wall. I don't think there was damage. There is damage from him, and ooh, Crime is closing in. Ooh, Delta, he needs to try to maintain himself. He can still get the position back from the Bulgarian if he keeps himself within 10 seconds of the Alfa Romeo. It is going to be difficult, not only from his tire wear, but also his wing damage compared to Crime being brand new tires, and basically he's going to try to push to get the fastest lap of the race and giving him the extra point. But still, if he does get that 5th place, it is an incredible result, especially after that 10-second time penalty. Big mistake from Delta in his debut race. Got P2 at the end of the first lap. He was leading, was not as good in the second stint with his tires, and is now out of the top 5, unfortunately for him. Not the greatest start of his season for the German driver, who, once again, for those of you who have missed it, he has been dropped from tier 1 down to tier 2, switching with Lyra. Lyra was of course dominating every single race, so he is getting promoted to the first place. He's getting promoted to the first tier, and yeah, we're going to see how well he does in that one. Now we have Called Lonely. Brilliant performance. After his mistake at turn 9 spinning, fortunately didn't get wing damage, but extending his tires to pull off the one-stop strategy. Brilliant performance from him, the only driver of the entire pack to do the one-stop strategy. And there you have it. He just has one corner separating him from glory, and that is going to be it. He's going to cross over the line to take home the win of the Spanish Grand Prix. The only driver besides Lyra to win twice in the championship. He gets himself a second win of the season. Cuba crosses in P2 Lasher, just too far behind in P3 Proxa. P4 Crime, he is 3.5 seconds away from Delta. He's going to cross the line in P5. Radek, a lap down, has completed his race as well, and Solo is soon to follow. Crime crosses in P5, but he is demoted to P6. Delta is able to get himself back into the top 5. So yeah, that penalty from Crime and also the puncture really throwing away his chances at the top 5. Gozieg gets himself P8 behind Wizok, wasn't really able to challenge the British driver at the end, and Gary Gunn. We have a lot of helicopters today. Gary Gunn is going to cross the line in P9, as Anselo is going to be the last one to cross the line and going to complete the Grand Prix. So we're going to get ourselves to the podiums, and of course after that I'm going to interview the podium seaters. So I'm going to interview Cuba, Called Lonely, and Lasher. I'm not sure if all of them have microphones. Maybe they don't. If they don't, obviously I'm not going to be able to interview them, but at least those that are available and that have a microphone, I'm going to try to get them on a Discord call and interview them. Great performance, very well. It was basically a one stop as well from the Haas driver, because he pitted at lap 3 and then he only pitted once more, right, to still claim himself a place in the podium. So great performance as well from Lasher, just showing what he's made of, really. That's his third podium of the season, and his third place of the season. So yeah, there you have it. Called Lonely takes the win. Cuba P2, Lasher P3, Proxa P4, Delta P5, Crime P6, Wizok P7, the top 7, apart from Crime, of course, getting 0 penalties. So also a very disciplined race from these guys. Wizok in P7, Goziak P8, Garrigan P9, and Radek closes top 10, a lap down, and Solo 2 laps down. And then we add George in P12, DNF'd, and some other cars that I couldn't quite catch who they were. So I'm going to try to get myself on a call. So I'm on a call, so I'm call Cuba, Lasher, what is Lasher, and call Colored, okay, so I'm hopefully they are going to join. They are online, all 3 of them, so I'm going to get them on the call. Lasher has already arrived, just waiting for the others. Called Lonely says that he has no mic, so unfortunately we can't interview the race winner, but Lasher is in. These Cuba in as well. Not sure if Cuba is. Cuba is online, but maybe it just doesn't have or is not paying attention to Discord. Well, let me try to message him. I'm going to message him one more time, and if I can't get through to him, I'm just going to interview Lasher. So Cuba call. Yeah, message this one more time. But yeah, while we wait, I'm going to interview Lasher. What's up, man? How are you doing?
Oh man,
Yeah.
I'm doing fine.
Yeah,
That was a crazy race.
I mean, it was a crazy race. I'll say, what happened in the first laps? What happened? I know you had to pit for with wing damage at lap 2 or lap 3, but yeah, what happened there?
What happened is that Crime slowed down the straight under VSC, and then Colored had to slow as well. I didn't expect that, and I just bumped into him and lost some of.
Okay, well, yeah, that's unfortunate. The PSC is always chaotic, especially in online races. But yeah, after that, was it your intention to always go for that one stop? Because after you pitted for replacing the front wing, you basically did a one stop. So were you always trying to do the one stop?
No, my intention was to do a two stop, but the strategy changed with the wing.
Okay, okay. But yeah, nonetheless, man, it was a great performance to still get beat Ray. You were giving close chase to Cuba, then with 2 laps to go, you made a mistake, which is unfortunate. But nonetheless, it was a great performance, man. So yeah, thank you for your words.
Thank you as well.
Uh, Now, going to move on to Cuba, who in the meantime was able to get himself on the voice call. And Cuba, once again, since Australia, I believe it was the only race where you and Lasher had been on a direct battle. You got P2, Lasher got P3 at Australia. Now history repeats itself. How hard is it to keep the Haas behind you?
Well, it's not hard. It's pretty hard to keep him behind, but it's much harder to overtake him, which he made for me a much more simpler than it should be. So
Yeah.
that's it.
Okay, about you pulled off the two stop. Were you having too much trouble with the tires, or were you just following the strategy that the game gave you?
Actually, I was following the two stop, but my tires were in the race where my tires were actually overheating, so
Okay.
that was a big issue for me.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it is understandable, especially in such a track. The tires do tend to overheat if you push them too hard. But yeah, nonetheless, another podium. Getting back to the podium, first podium for you since Australia. So yeah, congratulations
Sure.
for that, and thank you for your words.
Yeah, thanks for hearing me.
Problem. Okay, guys. So yeah, this is it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, give me a like button. If you did not, the dislike button is, as always, right beside it. Subscribe if you'd like to see more. It's the bell icon for any notifications of whenever I'm about to start a live stream or to post a video. Hope to see you guys there, and have a wonderful day. Goodbye.